We have with us today Professor Nguyen An Thu, who is the Vice Rector of Vietnam National University, Vietnam National University's University of Economics and Business. May I now invite her to deliver her remarks.
बेस रख दें नीचे, हाइट आ जाएगी भाई, सही बन जाएगा फ्रेम, हमें भी सही लगेगा देखने में। बहुत डिले आ रहा है।
Good afternoon. Firstly, it is my great honor to be here today, and I'd like to thank our colleagues at ASEAN Global University for inviting us to this great event. And I think that this is such a very, very good and great gathering. And I think from this one, a lot of knowledge can be created, and also a lot of the research idea will emerge from this conference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm from Vietnam National University, and I think that many of you know about Vietnam National University, which is a multidisciplinary university, and it is the top university in Vietnam according to the US ranking, to the QS Asia ranking. And in Vietnam National University, we have the university, many member university. So I think that I should explain it a little bit, because this is a very special system in Vietnam. Vietnam National University is a system of university and schools, and it has very high autonomy compared to other universities in Vietnam. So in this system in Vietnam National University, we have University of Social Science and Humanity, University of Natural Science, University of Technology, School of Medicine, Vietnam-Japan University, and also we have University of Economics and Business, which I belong to, and I'm the Vice Rector of the University of Economics and Business. And in our university, we also have 6 faculties and schools, which is the School of Business Administration, School of International Economics and Business, School of Faculty of Economic Development, Faculty of Finance and Banking, Accounting, Auditing, and also Faculty of Development Economics. So we have the history of the faculty, the Department of Political Economy of Hanoi Collective University, and officially established on March 6, 2007. So you may see that University of Economics and Business, we have very long history. So in terms of academic, we have very long history, which was the department of the Vietnam National University. And Vietnam National University was the Indochina University in the 19th century. But in terms of the institutional building, we are quite very young university. We become the university in 2007, so only 12 years old. So we consider this as our strength, because we have very long history, but at the same time, we are very young university, and all of the lecturers in our university coming from, graduating from different countries in the world. And they are quite young and quite energetic in collaborating with other universities in the world. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have the training units, as you may see on the slide, the 6 training units in our university. And we also have the research unit, which is the Center for Economic Development Studies, Center for Business Administration Studies, and the Vietnam Institute for Economic and Policy Research. and other functional units of the university. So today I would like to share with you some policy and some results of the research group building in our university. In our university now we have 4, we call the Outstanding Research Group, awarded with an official recognition of the Vietnam National University. And here we may see that the first one is the Economic Integration Research. The second one is Macroeconomic Theory and Policy. The third one is Quality and Productivity in Vietnamese Enterprises. And the fourth one is the Corporate Governance of Banks. So what are the similarity of all of this research group is that they have a high level of publication, and also at the same time they have the annual research, policy-oriented research, or the applied research that may transfer to the industry. So for the first 2 research, they are policy-oriented research, the Economic Integration Group and the Macroeconomic Theory and Policy Group. And so for the third and the fourth one, they have much more applied research, which can be transferred to the industry. The first one is the International Economic Integration Group. Their research priorities are international economic integration process of Vietnam. Because as you can see that Vietnam now is a developing country, but the rate of openness of the Vietnam economy is very high compared to other countries in the world, because we are a small economy and we very deeply, highly integrated in the world. The evidence is that Vietnam has a lot of the free trade agreements with other countries. And our research group, this group focused on this economic integration of Vietnam to the world, especially the ASEAN Economic Community, ASEAN and East Asia, and GMS economic integration, and also the integration of Vietnam, EU, FTA, etc. And the products of this research are the International Conference on Economic Cooperation, the books published and articles, and especially the research result transferred to the Ministry of Industry and Trade and the Central Economic Committee, and also the Steering Committee on Economic Integration in Vietnam. The second group, Macroeconomic Theory and Policy, which has the Vietnam Annual Economic Report, and this report also transferred to the very high level of the Vietnam leaders, the government of Vietnam. And also this research group lead or coordinate the Vietnam Agriculture Coalition. So as I mentioned that we have a lot of the research of this group transferred to the institution and the government bodies of Vietnam. And this is one of the examples that one of our experts from the research group is the member of the consulting group of the Prime Minister. And for other research groups, we also focus on the transfer to the industry. For example, the research group on quality and productivity in Vietnam's enterprise, and the research group on corporate governance banks. We have done research on this topic, and then we consider and we also investigate the demand of the industry in terms of, for example, increasing the productivity or applying the new model of administration in Vietnam, or creating new model of corporate governance in the Bank of Vietnam. And then we do the training and transfer our research result to the industry and the banks. And you may know that why corporate governance in Vietnam is very important, because when Vietnam opened the economy and also the banking system in Vietnam is booming, there are a lot of banks, but at the same time there are a lot of the problem in the corporate governance of the bank. So this is also very important issue in Vietnam. And other issue we also concentrate on maybe the personal finance, which is also very new issue in Vietnam. I think that in other countries in the world, like the US or other countries, personal finance it's not more a new issue, but in Vietnam it's actually the new one, and we also do research on that. And social responsibility of the corporate social responsibility. We have one project in our university that we lend the money to the social enterprise, and the enterprise will give back by their products, and this product will be used for charity. And in this project, we also do the research on that, and to see the demand, see the training demand for the social enterprise, and we do. So this is not only the fund that we lend to the social enterprise, but also we do the research, and we also transfer our research to the social enterprise. Okay, so what are the policies or what are the measures that we promote our research group in the university? The first one is we support research group by providing and finding the fund and grant for them, supporting in building partnership and connecting research group, creating similar and joint activity between the research group, and recognizing outstanding research group, meaning that we award the title for them. And this title, I think, also very significant for them to be partnered with other university and other experts. And we call this is the research group. It is very convenient for them to do the multidisciplinary research, because it is like the opening. It is not the fixed institution, but it is very open character of the research body, so that they can create and they can have international experts to join into this research group. And for other supporting activities in research in our university, we organize conferences supporting publication, and also encourage students to join research activities in the university. We may say that Vietnam National University is the first one which has the policy of supporting publication in terms of financial supporting to the researcher in Vietnam. And today, I really would like to share with you some of the research interests, and I'm really looking forward to your interest if we can form a joint research with our university. So here are some kinds of the topic that we are focusing now, and we have publication and also conference related to this one. And we do hope that we can create joint research in the near future. And today, we have a representative from our university, and also we have the student from our university coming. And for all of the members from Vietnam National University, this is our first time coming to India. And we have to fly from Vietnam, Hanoi to Singapore, and then from Singapore to New Delhi. But we do hope that in the future, with our collaboration and maybe other collaboration of the business industry, so we can have the direct flight from Hanoi to Delhi. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Anthu. I'm conscious that we want to close the session by 5 p.m., so may I ask the speakers to come to please limit their remarks to 5 minutes each. Thank you, that'll be great. May I now invite a very dear friend of the university, Professor Colin Picker, who is Pro-Vice Chancellor, Southwestern Sydney, and Dean School of Law, University of Wollongong, Australia.
This doesn't count as my 5 minutes. I've got the stopwatch here.
Yes, it's 5 minutes. This one, right?
Yeah, and the PowerPoint. Let's try the PowerPoint.
Yes. You may begin.
Okay, I press start. 5 minutes. When I was invited to speak here on interdisciplinarity, particularly encouraging it within universities, it was just the perfect timing. because I had just taken on the task of being Pro-Vice Chancellor for our new campus in southwestern Sydney. It's a campus of the University of Wollongong. And one of my tasks was to encourage interdisciplinary research projects. I started that process, and it was really hard. I encountered a whole bunch of obstacles, and it made me think, well, you know what? Does this really happen very much? I started asking, and there were very few actual examples that people could give me of true interdisciplinarity. So when I was asked to talk, I thought, all right, I'm going to figure this out. And so what I'm going to present is not really about my campus. You can imagine that the University of Wollongong is the most perfect place in the world, and you've got it right. That's all I'm going to say about it. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a few issues about interdisciplinarity. First of all, as I just said, I actually think it is quite rare, and I think it's very difficult as well. I think that the higher education environment and the research environments not only don't encourage it, but actually stand as obstacles towards interdisciplinary research. And I'm going to run through a series of challenges to interdisciplinarity, and then a few suggested solutions, which I'm hoping will help. I don't know, I haven't tried them yet. This is something I'll be doing over the next year and a half as I implement our research strategy at our new campus. So the first one, the concept defies the easy definition. It was mentioned earlier that in America that it's inter, trans, I don't know, I mean, what does it actually mean? And does it mean different things to different people? And whether someone says something is interdisciplinary, is it actually interdisciplinary most of the time? Or is it, later on I'll talk about what I actually think is going on there. Well, I think if with terminologically, if we actually use an instrumental approach, so we're using the term to mean something that we want it to mean. As long as we can figure out what that means, that'll help. Or we actually bring rigor to the terminologies, right? And we stick with that. I think it's hard for disciplines to collaborate. They have different regulatory environments. So if you think about earlier, it was proposed that law could work in there with science. Yes, we can. It's true. But if you're talking about sustained, long-term, big project, interdisciplinary research, it's very different. We operate in different ways, in different systems. We have different regulations that apply to some of our research or how we're used to it. Different ethical challenges. Now, these aren't insurmountable, but they're definitely challenges that are there. Specialists often don't understand each other. Trust can be lacking. And in fact, I do wonder if ever experts from different fields can truly become sufficiently expert in the other field to actually be able to feel comfortable with what else is going on there. Some of the responses are here, given it's 5 minutes. I'm not going to read them. You can read them all as we go through. And I'm happy to share the slides later. I think that there are cultural disconnects that take place with interdisciplinary research, which have to be overcome, and they can include substantive ones, such as theoretical or methodological differences, and not just differences, but actually opposite views of how the methodology should be applied. And this isn't just from STEM to non-STEM, but it's even within the HAS, the Humanities and Social Science. You can also get this as well. And some responses, and you can also have with gender roles and other societal disconnects. Research academics are specialists, right? We train them, and we train them hard, and we train them deep in their field, and then suddenly we expect them to be playing with other people. I'm not sure that that's something we train them for, and I'm not actually sure that it's what our promotion systems actually reward, right? So I don't think that the system always works to encourage this, because you can make promotion much faster, often by sticking to something small and becoming the world's expert in that, as opposed to being a team player and being that interdisciplinary research collaborator with everyone else. Here's some responses that I think that we could all engage in, particularly as so many of us are leaders in our university. We could help set up career pathways that require interdisciplinarity or take it into account when we make promotion decisions. Some of these things which go against, it's often harder to publish or to fund. Often the thing is, put an interdisciplinary team together, but many of you have been reviewers on grant applications. You know that sometimes you look at the feasibility or you look at the depth, and sometimes the best way to achieve feasibility and depth is to have a tight-knit team who've worked together in the same area for many years, and they have expertise and proven success within an area of research, as opposed to a bunch of disparate people who may or may not have worked together, but it's interdisciplinary. So grant success actually can be quite difficult, and similarly, the different fora for publication are also hard to find there. There's a feeling that it is trendy, that it's distortive, which actually goes against it, and we have to overcome that, because interdisciplinarity is actually one of the really positive, one of the great vehicles for having great research out there. We don't want our colleagues to say, oh yeah, you say it's now you want interdisciplinary, but next year it's going to be something else. I'm not investing the time, I'm not sacrificing my career to do this. We have to overcome that, we have to work against that. It can be costly. It is, in some cases, going to be more costly to be involving different teams from different areas. And it may also increase the inefficiencies that are there. It doesn't always, but and in fact, one could argue in the long term that using interdisciplinary teams can result in savings, because a lot of mistakes will be avoided, particularly at the engagement and implementation stage. And we should be able to step forward and do that. I realize I've gone over slightly. I'm almost there. It's hard to sustain over time, in part because you bring the teams together, but that's not their natural area of research. They want to get back to doing the stuff that they've always done and with the people they've always worked with within their field. And so the pressures for interdisciplinary teams to only last certain lengths of time. That means every time a new interdisciplinary team is put together, it's redone with all of those cultural disconnects and all of the learning that has to take place that were talked about in the earlier challenges. And then I think this is the final substantive slide. It's even harder to do internationally. Some of you have been saying, come and do stuff with us, right? That's easier if we're within the same discipline. I've worked a lot. I work with people here in Jindal within my field very well. But if it's interdisciplinary, it's yet another layer of challenge that's on top of that. And there we go. It's complex. It's not obvious. We really have to work for it. You have to be committed to it. It's not for the impatient, and it requires resilience. So that's all I could do within the time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin, for your very clear and unique take, as always. And I invite Professor Nordin Yahya, who is the Pro Vice Chancellor International at University of Technology, Malaysia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a very, very fast presentation. Thank you, Jeju, for the invitation. I'll be sharing about my university and how we created the interdisciplinary research. We started as a university, as a teaching university, and moved into research intensive university. I will share later our experience, but since I'm the only one from Malaysia, I think I just share a little bit about Malaysia higher education landscape. In Malaysia, we have more than 600 institutions, only 20 public universities. We have 96 private universities and college universities. The rest are colleges or polytechnics or community colleges. Only 5 are research universities. They are all public universities. Then there are many other universities, including international branch campuses in Malaysia. We have 12 from several countries. In terms of research in Malaysia, most of the research output actually is in the area of engineering and technology, as well as in natural sciences, 70%. But for the past few years, we actually achieved very good growth, 7.2%, well above world average, and with a lot of increasing citations. A little bit about my university, University of Technology Malaysia. We are based in Johor Bahru, but we have branch campus in Kuala Lumpur. On the right is we are very close to KLCC, if those who have been to Petronas. We have 22,000 students. The student body, about 40% are graduate, so we have close to 9,000 masters and PhD students, close to 5,000 PhD students. So these students are the engine of our research at UTM. Half of them are international students. Currently, we have close to 4,000 international students, including those who have registered this week. We have 18 faculties originally. Now, because of the push for synergy and interdisciplinary academic and research collaboration, we now merge to 7 faculties only, 4 based in Johor Bahru and 3 based in KL, Kuala Lumpur. Our journey actually based on our global plan for starting from 2010 with desired state we put at 2020 where we're going to be. This is when we first started in 2009. Those are the publications, 700 journals, citation only 1,300, and we were not ranked under QS. And we put this target, very ambitious target, for 10 years. We wanted to have 15,000 journals, 50,000 citations, and QS ranking number 200. We monitored along the way. We managed to get to a certain point, but this is the actual what we have achieved this year. So we achieved well before we exceeded the target 90,000 for 5 years Scopus journals in 2018. So well above target of 15,000 in 2020. I think probably we have done something right there by forcing everyone to work together, especially in research. So what did we do? Before this, people have been working traditionally in discipline-based research cluster, etc. Very, very focused. And then during the first phase of our plan, we merged everyone into 10 clusters or 10 research alliance, we call it. And then for the second phase or the third phase of our plan, we make it smaller only to 5 very focused research alliance, we call it. So we have these 5 are resource sustainability, frontier materials, smart digital community, health and wellness, innovative engineering. So everyone is working under these 5 areas only. So we have dean equivalent who head the research alliance. So for each faculty member has to report to 2 deans. Okay, Dean of Education or Academy and Dean of Research, something like that. So both will do the evaluation. So we monitor all our research clusters, and eventually we have the research instruments to monitor the performance. And by merging, actually they are doing much better. I don't have time to explain this. But based on the Skyver, Scopus, actually these are the clusters that we originally work within the discipline, but actually we have quite a lot of interlinks between the groups. So we want to make them move closer so that we can achieve what we call multidisciplinary research. I just skip some of this, just to show some of the figures of international collaboration that Malaysia has. On average, for all institutions, it's about 36%. But for research universities, those 5 research universities, including UTM, our international collaboration with foreign partners actually close to 50%. And those countries, probably I just highlight those are here, like UK, Australia, India, Indonesia, in top 15 in terms of international research collaboration. In terms of output, again in Malaysia, the number one university in Malaysia is University Malaya. Number two in terms of research output in Malaysia is actually UTM. We produced for the past 5 years 16,000, as mentioned previously. And skip some of this, but now we're focusing not only on the numbers but also the quality. So we go for Q1 and Q2 kind of journals, and at UTM we managed to produce about 35%. I mentioned about PhD students. So on annual basis we produce between 500 to 600 PhD holders. So these are, I mentioned, the engine of our research. We do a lot of collaboration with renowned universities, with MIT in the Sustainable Cities program, with Kyoto University in sustainability, also in sustainable. So we are working very hard in multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary, depends on the definition again. And in terms of sustainability, definitely it is interdisciplinary. So there we are. Malaysia is one of top 15 in the world in sustainability, and Malaysia we are number one. Even we are ahead of number one university, which is University Malaya in Malaysia. And again, in terms of numbers, another area of interdisciplinary research, actually in green technology, we are there as well in terms of number of research output, and we are doing very well as well with India, top 10 in terms of research collaboration internationally. This is actually the output from Europe. If you don't know, Europe is a ranking, university ranking by academic performance. They only measure bibliometric based on Web of Science. UTM actually became research university much later. UTM is this one. The graph is one up, and so we are challenging all other research universities now. We are now at number 2. For the past 5 years, we have increased quite significantly. If we look at ranking, now in engineering and technology, we are number 50, 53, around that figure. In the world, 228. And in Asia, we are number 47. And this is something that probably I want to show you. Again, in terms of interdisciplinary research, we currently, on the Europe ranking, we are number 3 in the world in sustainable and renewable energy. In terms of, this is based on bibliometric Web of Science journals. So the focus after this is based, mainly we are targeting more on the SDG kind of research, Sustainable Development Goals, and we are assigning the research groups or the research grant will be addressing SDGs. Okay, thank you very much.
Many thanks, Professor Yaya. Our next speaker is Professor Stephen James Saini, who is Dean of the Office of Academic Support Services at the American University of Ras Al Khaimah, UAE.
While she pulls up this PowerPoint, which I'm mostly going to abandon in the interest of time, I think I'll begin. I wanted to start off with a small quote. There's a novelist, Roger Zelazny, who mentions that the best prophets are really the ones who don't even believe their own message. And I think that sometimes I would say to you, I'm going to try to deliver what I think is a sort of positive message about research, and yet I will say there's a sort of cynical, depressed side of me that often thinks, I'm not sure just how successful one can be. And I worry about that, right? It is, in effect, let's say the problem of our discipline is we all know that there are certain kinds of problems for it, but what to do about them. And so really I wanted to just give you, not working this very well. Really, I just want, well, good, I'm abandoning it anyway. I'll give you a couple of anecdotes and a few sort of practical suggestions for creating interdisciplinary research. And so the thing I want to say is I'm at the American University of Ras Al Khaimah. It's relatively new, 10 years old, but it's got a lot of hope and optimism. We just got SACSUOC accreditation, which was a several-year process that was fairly antagonizing, at least in terms of program development, because you couldn't have any substantive changes while you were in your candidacy. And now that that's done, the world has sort of opened up in terms of things we can do. So what are the things that you can do at a program level to encourage interdisciplinary research? Well, I'll tell you, and this is the cynical, depressed side, I'll tell you how you can do it wrong. And I want to give you just a few odd examples. One is, I've been going to an awful lot of, since I took the position over international partnerships conferences of one sort or another. And one of the things to do wrong is it's very easy to sign MOUs that are effectively sort of useless, right? And we have some at our university that work, mostly though on the student level, at sort of student exchange. But in terms of genuine faculty exchange, they're not organic. I can't go and sort of meet someone at this conference and then come back to faculty and encourage them to make connections. They didn't meet the people, they don't know, and research is such a personal, intensive thing that never actually functions. So how can you make it function? Well, one of the ways to put this is learning is very typically, and I say this partially perhaps more for the students that could be here than the administrators and faculty, is that your work is often social in terms of the kind of learning you do. So let me give you some anecdotes that drive this home and actually make my point. I used to teach over a decade ago in the Texas State prison system, and the prisoners are fairly interesting in terms of what they're there for, but they're often a sort of collection of murderers and thieves. And one of the things that is very much at stake in the classroom for them are the relationships they have. So they were very limited in the spaces, and you could just visibly see it. I mean that the Latinos would all sit together, the white supremacists would all sit together. The classroom was was built up this way. And it prohibited collaboration in a real sort of specific sense. And so you could do a few things in the classroom to try to make that happen, but quite frankly, it wasn't going to happen. Now, I've had the opposite occur, and this is where I would sort of like to go in terms of directions. One of the ways that this has occurred to me is if you take away that visual element. And I've taught online before. I had this experience in online teaching. It was a children's lit class where we had done this religious-oriented text, and it led to a bunch of students. I was teaching in Texas at the time, a large Southern Baptist community, that suddenly on the discussion boards had jumped into a kind of discussion of how those people who walk around wearing a hijab all the time, sort of throwing their religion in your face, and how that was ridiculous. And basically, because they were in an online forum, it was this kind of open blog space. And before I could shut any of that down, you had 5 or 6 people sort of supporting the person who said it. Now, they did not realize that a very solid student in the class, who was well respected in the discussion boards for the previous month, was a Muslim who wore her hijab all the time. I happen to know it because she had taken a previous class face-to-face from me, but they didn't know it. And so she suddenly leapt in with a comment, which is, well, I wear a hijab all the time. This is someone they know, but they don't know who she is, in this sense. And basically she said, and the same thing happens to me. I see people wearing a Christian cross and wearing "What Would Jesus Do" t-shirts. This is Texas. And it's sort of offensive to me. And what this led to is this incredibly wonderful collaborative backing down of the students who had attacked. Like, they suddenly realized the emptiness of their own position. That could never have happened in the classroom space if they had seen her. They never would have opened up with the commentary. So my point is, what was good about that was that it found, somehow, and again it was somewhat accidental, you found a way to disrupt normal senses of community, normal senses of research, normal senses of thinking. Well, how do you do that some way that's not accidental? Here is the sort of one practical solution I'll give to you, particularly in terms of faculty. How do you get faculty to sort of think about disruptive spaces? Well, you somehow encourage it. I've been in 2 different universities where they had a program that worked somewhat like this. You would give a course release for someone to develop an interdisciplinary work, and you would sort of say, we need an interdisciplinary class. We will only reward you in terms of the finance of paying you or course release. Of course, I say this to the administrators in the room, course releases are beautiful. They are revenue neutral. So you give someone a course release and you say, look, we're going to pay you plus a course release if you will just put together a class with some faculty member outside of your discipline. And then the other trick of this is you have to make it so that students will take it, right? You have to make it so that it will count in their degree plan at some level. That's another sort of layer to it. But if you can do that, what you end up with are faculty who are sort of, they go searching for it, because particularly the places I've taught there, often they sort of pay lip service to the idea that you must do a bunch of research. We are very research oriented, but they still have a 3 or 4 class load that's being given to faculty. So giving faculty money works, but giving them time, right? Course releases works even better. And then that is the incentivization for them to go find somebody else to do work with. I've done it a couple of times myself. I've taught classes with an art professor. I'm a literature person, literature and philosophy, but a theater person. You go find, and I've done some collaboration with math. That was a tough one. And in fact, like the research is so sort of radical in a sense, it just turns into more a question of like design thinking or something like this. But it was still fruitful for both of us. And I think that's it, is you have to find ways to make this, several of us have brought up the question of just how, to some degree, it's not natural to work, especially for people who have been taught to specialize, to sort of think outside of these spaces. So how do you find ways to give incentive for doing it? Well, this is it. You find some way to give them time for doing it, and also a kind of way that it motivates things. The students themselves will also become these interdisciplinary students, especially because you're going to be pulling in somebody from your own program, but the program of the other faculty member. One of the ways this has worked, particularly then, I mean, it's helped my research in doing it, but I've had a student come out of a joint class I taught with an art professor to do graphic design. He made a video game out of it. This is Gonzalo Alvarez. It's about border crossing. And one of the ways he learned to make that video game was he knew nothing about software coding, but he had an engineer in our class. And that was one of those things that came up in class conversation of, I wish I knew how to do this. Oh, I know how to do that, said the other student, and it turned into a collaboration. But that only happens when you stick these people together that otherwise are not going to be talking to one another for one reason or another. And that's sort of organic, ground up, rather than top down, us telling them, you need to do interdisciplinary research. That won't accomplish very much. But if you can find this way to sort of enable it to happen from that ground roots place, then it will come up and success will come out of it. The way that Dr. McCall put it earlier was dual voids. I think of this, I've been thinking of it as disruptions, but sort of exposing to people what they don't know and taking the things that are just completely alien to them and thrusting it at them. That's in some ways the way that this works. Research has to come out of not your comfort zone, but out of these sort of uncomfortable, unknown spaces that you are in some ways sort of putting together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Singh. I now invite Mr. Aditya Malkani, who is the South Asia representative for the Association of Commonwealth Universities, to please share his thoughts.
Just let it be a regular background. Good afternoon, and a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to come back to Jindal Global University. I've been here several times, and very, very happy to have your attention today. In the interest of time, I'm also going to give up the usage of my slides and just go verbal instead. Just to say, I'm South Asia representative for the Association of Commonwealth Universities. A little bit about the ACU. We're the world's oldest international university network, established way back in 1913. We're a membership organization with over 500 university members across 50 plus Commonwealth countries. Interestingly, India happens to have the largest number of members as part of the ACU network, and which explains my role. We do a lot of different sorts of projects, and many of them are in areas of research management and uptake. Our work in research is very focused on helping universities implement and understand their research extremely well. We help universities strengthen their research capabilities, and have done a number of projects in areas of climate change. In Africa, for example, we're at the moment starting to look at some projects in India as well. But I think what I'd like to focus on in this presentation is give you some examples of how we use our position, because we're at a pretty good spot in terms of observing the university space as a whole with our members in so many different countries. We have members in developed countries, we have members in developing countries, we have members across the Commonwealth. And we're in a good position to observe how education systems are developing and functioning the world over, particularly in the times we're in today. So I'd like to give the example of our ACU Summer School. It's a program we run every year at a different university in a different country as far as possible. So last year's program was at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. This year's program is at the University of Mauritius on the theme of public health, and we've had programs in Rwanda, in the UK, and other parts of the Commonwealth. Now, why this is relevant in this particular case is because while we have a particular theme for our summer program and we've got excellent speakers coming in and delivering sessions, we encourage students from different disciplines to come in and attend. And the objective here is to try and inculcate a culture at the very early stages in a student's life, whether you're a final year undergraduate or an early first year postgraduate student. Try and inculcate an interest in disciplines apart from your own. So if you're, let's say, a student studying technology, it's still useful for you to come in and understand the summer program in public health in Mauritius, simply because you can always become a tech entrepreneur in the health space using some of the learnings you get to access there. So that tells you a little bit about our approach here. I'll also give the example of another project, and in the interest of time, because I know we have to get through a few more speakers, I worked before this for a university called King's College London, and King's are also ACU members and our collaborators of Jindal right here. And we ran for a number of years a very large and successful summer program in India, where we brought in our academics from King's to come and teach in India, and we had 7 or 8 different institutions across the country that were centers for this summer program, and saw students from all over India come to these 7 or 8 centers, to take the benefit of this program. And while we ran these programs in different disciplines, from health to law, to international relations, to business, there again, we always encouraged young faculty as well as students from different disciplines to come in and attend these programs. Again, using the same principle that we must inculcate interdisciplinarity at as early a stage as possible. So there's plenty more information available on our website. I don't want to hold up the program by going into greater detail, but these are my few bits of information. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Aditya. I now invite 2 friends from Masaryk University, Dr. Mikhail Radvan who is the Vice Dean for Foreign and External Affairs, and Mr. Johan Schwieger, who is Research Fellow both at Masaryk University in the Czech Republic.
Thank you. Just try to find our slides. So, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation and the perfect hospitality. I really love it, and this is the first time in India for me, and it's a beautiful country and beautiful people. As the topic is international cooperation is in research, I have prepared some brief presentation on these issues, maybe how to promote international research. And there are maybe two ways. Because before we start research cooperation, we must know each other and how to get it. Especially in law, there is a trouble because law is national. And I believe we need some international view and we need some comparison of our systems. And there are many ways how to do that. Including two issues. The last two, visiting professors and maybe PhD students who might be a good source for international research. And at the moment, we are opening 4 new PhD programs for international students. What is constitutional law, legal theory and public affairs, corporate foundation and trust law, and intellectual property. What are we running right now is financial law and financial science, both in English and Polish version. Well, it's quite strange for the Czech Republic, but we have really some students in this program. And we strongly believe that these students will help us with international research because they can offer something new, something we maybe even don't know what they can give us. Plus, Colin was perfect in his speech about the interdisciplinary research. And as you can see, the topics of these programs, we do believe that these topics might be interdisciplinary. In my area, in financial law and tax law, we do have PhD students who are not lawyers, who are economists, and this offers great opportunities, in my opinion. The second way, how to get teachers, international teachers to our faculty and start international research cooperation are the visiting professors. We have, or historically, we had several troubles how to do that, how to get them into the faculty, how to make them teach. But at the end, we found out how to solve this issue, and we started something like visiting professors program. And later, when we will share this presentation, hopefully you can go through these pages and you can see that we do have every semester between 20 and 30 visiting professors. Altogether, in one calendar year, we have 50 visiting professors courses, plus we offer additional 40 courses in English, what is very unique in Central and Eastern Europe for law schools. What do we need from these visiting professors? We ask them to give us these basic information to open the course. When they send it, I can open the course in 24 hours, in fact. We ask them to prepare 500-minute speeches. We give our students 5 ECTS credits. We guarantee that teacher has at max 30 students only in his lesson. And officially it's accepted by the dean, unofficially by me. What is great. What are the troubles? Money, money, money. So we are using a lot of sources. The best one is the Erasmus Plus program. Unfortunately, it works perfectly within Europe, between European schools. Internationally, it's one disaster because if once you sign any agreement within the Erasmus Plus program, World program, they almost guarantee you that you will not be able to sign for the next year because you already used this program with this particular international school. That's why we are trying to get some bilateral agreements, and then it depends how it's financed. We are using sources from embassies, we do have, of course, our own sources. We do have perfect cooperation with the John Marshall School from Chicago. They are paying themselves the trips to the Czech Republic, and they are teaching our students. So this is really perfect, and this opens new possibilities for students, for the faculty, and for us as teachers in the area of research, because we can speak with these people who are coming, and this is the only reason how we can start the cooperation. And the perfect example is the project, the Rise of Judicial Self-Government in Europe. What is ERC project, what is very special in the European context. It's fully financed by EU, and there are just 2 projects at the moment in the area of law financed by this program. To be honest, if this guy prepares the project only on law, he will never be successful. It must be something interdisciplinary. So if it's something with politics, political science, it helps a lot. And we do have a lot of other, mostly European projects as well, national projects. And this guy was able to create his team, because this was one of his tasks at the very beginning, to prepare international team. And he used these people who were coming for conferences and who were coming as visiting professors, who were PhD students. So this is, in my opinion, necessary. Well, you all are very invited to come to our school. It's a little bit strange to make a promo with beer and wine at Tri Campus, but this is our goal. And you have 4 years. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a few words from me. I also got a presentation, but since we are from the same faculty, I decided to make it short. I know the time is almost over, and I will just tell you a few words about my presentation. We are from the same faculty, so I don't need to introduce our faculty again. I will just tell you something about myself. My name is Johan Schweigel. I'm from the Department of Financial Law. I'm not a typical academic. I came from practice. I spent some years in Deloitte and several law firms. What I was going to tell you about is also the need of an interdisciplinary approach. I had the presentation prepared, and then I heard several really amazing speeches here, and it is very hard to speak about the interdisciplinarity here, since there was Colin, just a few speeches ahead of me, and he gave a brilliant explanation of what interdisciplinary approach means. Then I remembered what Professor Jun Liu mentioned before from the New York University, and he said that there are several approaches or several perspectives to what interdisciplinarity means, which calmed me down, and again I can feel that I can say at least a few words about what I feel about interdisciplinarity. I look at it from the point of view of a practitioner, and in the practice I learned one thing. It is important, if you want to understand regulation, to look at what's inside the regulation and first understand the economic essence of certain relationships. I understand regulation as a cover which goes over certain economic relationships. And I believe that this approach should be also applied to legal research. If we want to understand certain very complicated regulations, such as I focus on monetary policy and the legal aspects of monetary policy, the use of certain unconventional monetary policy tools. So if we want to understand this regulation, first we need to understand what's the economic essence of the tools which are being regulated. And to make it short, I think this is also important in the research and in legal education. We should explain to our students, or we should maybe first try to get at least some economic basics if we want to describe or research certain very complex issues which are being regulated. So I made my point very short. I hope that it was understandable, and I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you both, Mikhail and Johan. Next speaker, Professor Dr. Ahmed Fadil Yusuf, who's Professor of Comparative Religious Studies at the Faculty of Usuluddin University, Islam Sultan Sharif Ali, Brunei.
Good evening or good afternoon. It's getting a little bit late and everybody dozy, and maybe very soon good night. No, I don't need any, it's okay. First of all, let me thank the organizing committee, London Global University, for inviting us to this intellectual discourse and conference. And it seems like a very policy-making participant and coming from varieties of institute. I'm not going to speak about Brunei. I'm not Bruneian. I'm Canadian, and I actually study in Canada. I was like a product of Canadian educational system. I do have experience in research. I did my PhD and my master in Canada. And I do have 12 years in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and then 10 years in Brunei, but I still live in Canada. So anyhow, I don't want to speak about myself. The whole issue about interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach in research, it's quite interesting, and it's coming in the past maybe 10 years. In my opinion, I am a practitioner. I'm not policymaker. I do have research projects on multidisciplinary in Brunei as well as in Malaysia. And nothing really substantial in Canada. In Canada, we were trained as a researcher. We have established research center, and we were a member of the research center. So it was until we finished. Now, there is a new idea, maybe I will share it with you, which is just comes actually just like now. And I said, well, many spoke about what is the product of the research. I mean, we do have a problem. I was just like a few years in Canada teaching, and there is funding and money and all these issues. Brunei doesn't have a problem with money. It has a problem with how to do research. And Canada, you have to fight for money. And humanity and my department of religious studies, and please understand, it's not theology, we are social scientists. Okay, we are trained as a social scientist, and it's not theologian and not teaching Bible or whatever. From this, the Canadian Research Association, SHRC, it's you have to fight for the money, and I never had the chance because I never worked there. But I do have colleagues who have big project, big money from the Canadian government. Malaysia have a lot of money, and actually our colleague here, Samir from Skudai, right, from Johor, knows about this. They live, but UIA, when I was working there, I would say 90% of the staff, lazy, no skills of research, they love to go teach in the class, and that's it. I'm a professor of university. Well, this is not university then. So the government started to actually give money. Said, okay, every professor, here 10,000. Do whatever you want. Okay, well, what are you going to do with it? Go buy a nice laptop, camera, or whatever, toys, and where's the productivity? It's none, or very weak. Now, I'll speak about one project, maybe in the next 2-3 minutes, in Brunei. When I joined the University of Sultan Sharif Ali Islamic University in 2015, right away I submitted a research project on moderation in world religion. In Arabic called wasatiyya, for those who understand Arabic. So, how to select the researcher? I was a leader. I asked for fund, everything approved. The deputy rector was a member. I said, you become my assistant. He said, okay. And the dean of the faculty, she was a member. And one linguist teaching English, I said, I need you to make sure that the language is accurate. And one from economics. So for 2 years, we were working on this project. Done, published, good. We did not spend one ringgit, $1. Currently, I am the head or coordinator of research and development in the faculty. And in the faculty board, one professor, associate professor, raised the point. He said, what happened when we raised the question about research? He said, I submit 2 research projects rejected. Even in the project, I said, no funds. I don't need funds. But the university still reject the proposal. So I said, why you need money? If you really you wanted to work, you could work without even the university network. I'm not saying, okay, you have to have organized research project, get the approval. This is also the bureaucracy is really headache. And then the fund, they give you 100,000, what are you going to do with it? So he kind of swallowed it, but he said, no, but university now KPI, and Scopus, we need to publish, we need this, otherwise we're not going to survive in the university. And I said, you do publish, you do research, you don't have to apply for any humanity, whatever. We are not engineering or whatever. So this proposal, when I submitted, they asked me, what is the research project? I said, I will get 2 PhD students in this project. They will finish their PhD under me or under one of the researcher in the group. And the dean, she went, what? You want a PhD students in this project to get a PhD degree? And I said, yes. Oh, no, cannot do this. The whole thing is closed, no master. And I felt it is a good way that if we want to nurture our PhD student, new brain, new ideas, these projects should include students, which is a PhD student. Things I did actually in Kuala Lumpur, I choose 5 PhD students under one project, same wasatiyya, or moderation, and done a great job. I gave them money, I have a lot of money, and I was director of the institute. And I picked them one from law, one from economics, political science, sociology, psychology, then published in North America, a book. So anyhow, I'm just sharing this. Sorry about the timing, and thank you for listening, and have a good evening.
Our next speaker, Professor Morten Hughes, from the Department of Communication and Culture, BI Norwegian Business School, Norway.
India may be the country of interdisciplinary research. Thinking about what we can learn from Indian religions, traditions, biology, psychology, and whatever, that's interdisciplinary. And I really think we are needing interdisciplinary research. Typically, I'm in several sets of classes, and I'm seeing different things depending on which classes I'm using.
I'll go over to the microphone so that if you're recording it or whatever, but no, it's
it's there. And I think it's important that we are coming together and do work. I've been asking students, I typically present 16 squares, and a square is something like this. And I'm asking the students and other people, how many squares are you seeing? And typically they start with 16, 21, 28, 31, and then they don't know. And then I tell them I'm seeing more than 100, because as I'm coming to India, I'm seeing new dimensions of it. It's not only 2 dimensions, it's several dimensions. And even it's not only 3, but even 4 dimensions behind it. That's interdisciplinary research. We need it. But it's difficult. I'm doing programmatic research. Programmatic and phenomenologic research, which means I'm starting with a problem and trying to solve it. Somebody are asking me, which are my hobbies? And I'm telling them my hobby, or one of my hobbies, is to collect different methods in trying to explore a topic. I'm Morten Huse. I'm coming here to represent or present some of the reflections I've had as an international scholar for many years. I maybe even be a global scholar, but typically an international scholar, because I see a main difference between international and global, because I think I see differences between different nations and cultures, and not only that there is one standard that is coming, and that's, I really fear to have one standard going all over, but we need to understand the histories and background and cultures when we are trying to do different things. And there is not one need that we are meeting all over. When we are using standards for one place, that do not necessarily take care of the core understandings, taking care of the core topics, the needs we have different places. So I think we're needing to be international and understand it, and it's not one standard to follow. I'm come from BI, Norwegian Business School. This is one of the largest business schools in Europe. It's a private. We have 20,000 students. We are in Oslo. And I'm coming here to present some provocation and challenges based on my experiences over many years. And partly because I was highly involved with the American Academy of Management, or AOM as many of you know, which is the core management organization globally that really wants to be global, which I've been trying to fight and tell them that they should be international and not global, because there are so many other things being around. I've also in a period was the president of the European Academy of Management, and were then able to be able to counterbalance and try to find alternatives and to see how things could be developed further. My private research is about boards of directors or corporate governance, value-creating boards on the one side. On the other side, I'm highly involved in gender issues, gender balance, particularly women's career and women on boards, and then combining these 2 different things, but embedding it more and more in topics that are related to the national understanding and cultures. And the different instruments that needs to be done need to be adapted to what we learn from the national cultures. And then you're seeing also the importance of going into using different interdisciplinary approaches behind it. I've been teaching in about 50 different universities in 9 countries, I think it is. And I've been doing executive presentations in between 25 and 30 different countries. And as indicated, also been involved academically in different places. And we've been asked what's excellence in research, and we've been referring to European Research Council, for example, and they have been listing different things that are important with excellence of research. I'm just passing as it's on the board, so I don't need to repeat it. And then we should also think about what really matters the most when we're thinking about scholarship. What is scholarship? And it's universities and we are scholars. This is among the core things. And when going to some of the background and some of the core discussions about scholarship, the work of a scholar, well, he's a US scholar, but Boyer
presented the scholarship of discovery, scholarship of integration, scholarship of application, and scholarship of teaching. And these have been repeated several times. I'm trying to understand what it is. And it's not only one of them. And I do not have here listed the scholarship of publishing, but the scholarship of discovery and integration as some of the things that directly goes to that, close to publication. But publication is not the starting point of scholarship. There is an urgent need for a rethinking what we're doing about research and rethinking our approach to management. It was echoing. And I'm writing a book these days about scholarship. And the title is A New Game for Research, A Sharing Philosophy. Taking the Swedish scholar Mats Alvesson, he's calling for a search for meaning in what we're doing. And he's been arguing through lots of publications for some time that more and more research and publications are being conducted, but they are contributing less and less. And further, that researchers are becoming less of scholars, more of journal publishing technicians. There are immediate needs for doing something and rethink many of the things we are doing on a global basis. Now, I was using global, not international. And there have been approaches by many groups and associations, many initiatives. Among the core things are something about metrics, other about relevance. Both of them are important in it. The DORA, or the San Francisco Declaration, is very much against that of trying to rank journals, rank universities, and saying that they are really destructive. There are so many misconducts that are developing based on them. I've been signing this declaration, so I've been promising not to list any journals I've been publishing. Furthermore, in my area, the research, responsible research in business and management is, I had an extra E there, I see, which is focused on trying to bridge the gap between business between research and practice. That we're getting closer to what we're doing, that it has relevance, it's important. So the impact issue is the core thing behind it. So I've been signing that one also, which means that I'm trying to get close as possible to these things. Well, this is not on a sentiment for a few. This has been taken up by the core associations, not only in managements like academic management, URAM, EGOS, but also in lots of other disciplines. So it's something, there's a sentiment that many professional organizations are following up, and we definitely are meeting. But it is really a call for senior scholars to really try to do something.
VNUIS, our school, internet school, have the organization something like a university, but not really university. So that's why we, in this chart, we have some functional unit. We have 3 departments both from natural science, technology, and social science, and management and economics. But we need to, because VNU has oriented university, oriented research university, so we have to strengthen our research to become a real university. Right now we have 7 undergraduate programs, and maybe in this year we have 2 new programs in undergraduate. We have more than 30 foreign partners, and we have 5 graduate programs. Here I will show you some example about the undergraduate program. You can see we have a bachelor from business to the technology, and especially we focus in this year 2 new programs. Here in the Bachelor of Marketing, the dual degree with the University of Malaysia, and maybe the Bachelor is the Interdisciplinary Bachelor of Data and Business Analytics. It's the interdiscipline between computer science, applied mathematics, and business. What makes VNUIS special? I want to emphasize here, in our school, 100% program are conducted in English, and at least 20% subject taught by foreign lecturer. And also because there are both Department of Natural Science and Technology and Department of Social Science and Economics. So we have it's really easy to create the interdisciplinary research and develop a new training program inside VNUIS. And I also have to emphasize that only us in VNU have the autonomy in finance. So it's easy for us to be a pioneer, to be a first institution to have new things. And also we have something very special, that's name is the Visiting Scholar Program, I will tell you later. So as I said before, because VNU is an oriented research university. So to make VNU's international school becomes an international university, we need to make our research strong and stronger. Yeah, five things we have to do here. We did 5 things. First, we create a new network, expect via visiting scholar program, view research lab, organize conference, support procedure, admission, and of course, financial support. Now we step by step go to the first one, the visiting scholar program. It's founded by Father VNU President is now is the Minister of Education and Training. In this program, we invite experts from all over the world, well-known experts, to VNUIS to have a lecture, to have a joint work with permanent staff. And the second one, we have organized something, some lab, research labs, and we have 2 labs in data science, optimization, and information system. Here we have to emphasize that the lab member here is not only from permanent VNUIS, but also from the well-known university all over the world. For example, here you can see the website of the lab, data science here. Is a professor from France, from the University of Lawrence. You can see the time is a seminar. For example, the next month, February 12, for example. You know, in Vietnam right now is almost Tết holiday, and after Tết holiday, right after Tết holiday, we have a seminar, something like this. And also we focus on organize some workshop. For example, in the 2016, we have the workshop on banking and finance, and this year we are planning to organize an international conference on applied mathematics and applications in December. And the first one. There is a little bit trend that, you know, in Vietnam, we normally, for example, the money for funding for project of the natural science around 400 to 600 million Vietnam dollars. But not much people focus on this. Why? Because the procedure to do. For example, to write a proposal, to report, and to take the invoice, and to a lot of things. So what we want to support the team, the project member, is that we create a division. The division here maybe from the Office of Research and Partnership Development. They are maybe some staff, 4 or 5 staff. They can. Investigate the procedure, investigate how to write proposal, how to proceed So that for the expert, for the scientist, only focus on the professional. And the last one, of course, financial support. We encourage the research by, for normally for the main author of each paper journal is around 60 million Vietnam đồng. It's around 3,000 US dollar per paper. It's 5% journal. And for the Q1 ISI Scopus, maybe around 1,500 US dollar. And the last one. So VNUIS, I would like to say that VNUIS welcome all experts here, especially in the field of computer science, data analytics, and business, to join to the program of visiting Sukuna program in VNUIS. And also we have it's need to invite host partner here to invest. We have a 9-hectare campus in Hoa Nạc. We have to build a building, but now we need to some investment from all of you. If you have to, if you are interested in investment in VNUS, you are only welcome. Thank you very much.
Michael Kyle.
I have enormous problems, except I thought to ask for a handheld ahead of time. I've never been the ultimate anything before, but I guess I'm the ultimate speaker here today. I have the advantage of listening to all of the rest of you, and what strikes me is each of our institutions has tremendous comparative advantages, and each of us have tremendous comparative disadvantages, like cash, for some of us. Let me tell you about my comparative advantages, and hopefully that will get you thinking about what I mean when I say that, and then we can talk during dinner about cooperation. I have 3 comparative advantages. The first, with due respect to my colleagues in the field, I'm a lawyer. I'm in law. Second, I'm in Bhutan. And third, we're the first and only law school in Bhutan. What do I mean? In 1986, Bhutan adopted the alternative development strategy, gross national happiness, as its development strategy, as an alternative to gross national product. Gross national happiness has very little to do with happiness. It's a translation thing. And everything to do with environmental conservation, sustainable socioeconomic development, sustainable communities, and good governance. And what it means is everything gets planned. Every project, from opening the first law school, to setting up a subdivision, to introducing a new branch of the hospital, to sending students abroad for studies in kidney science, must go through gross national happiness planning. It takes months, it takes years, but everything gets planned, which means that everything is data intensive. Which means we, as lawyers, whenever we want to do anything, we need to reach out to the social scientists, to the doctors, to the public policy planners, to everybody. I can't lift a finger. I can't write a single article without being interdisciplinary. So, since 1986, Bhutan has been doing gross national happiness. In 2001, His Majesty the Fourth King, the architect of gross national happiness, announced to the people of Bhutan that he had searched his heart, and as absolute monarch, he had determined that absolute monarchy was inconsistent with gross national happiness. And the people said, no, Your Majesty, you're a wonderful king. We've seen what democracy does in America and Britain and everything else. We don't want it. We want an absolute monarchy. He said, number one, you may think you're happy, but unless you have self-governance, you are not truly happy. My first reason. My second reason is I am your absolute monarch, and if I say you're going to be a democracy, you're going to be a democracy. So, Bhutan becomes a democracy. Well, what does that do? That activates us as lawyers. Suddenly, all roads don't lead and all powers don't lead through the palace. We have a parliament now. We have an active private sector. We have NGOs. We have civil society. All of them need legal advice. All of them need lawyers. So I have a tiny law school, first of its kind, only one of its kind in Bhutan, where all of my colleagues, and frankly, many of my undergraduate students are called upon to draft legislation, to advise parliaments, to advise the line ministries on new legislation. So, we're in Bhutan. Bhutan needs everything planned, and quite frankly, and this is my pitch for visiting scholars, Bhutan needs everything. Whatever your specialty is, in law, in public policy, in business, in medicine, so on and so forth, Bhutan's looking for you and your colleagues to come help us build this new rule of law society, to bring Bhutan into the modern age. We are in Bhutan. We are lawyers. What do lawyers do? Lawyers, you insert your own punchline, but lawyers build societies. Lawyers build rule of law societies. And so we are called upon to be interdisciplinary all the time. The third one, as I said, first and only. Rick said earlier that lawyers like to write about what the law is. We like to sit down with dusty books, read a bunch of cases, and then summarize them for each other. And then we look at them and say, ooh, good summary. Brilliant. We're not scientists, we're not anything. The good news is, and so if I was in America or the Netherlands where I've taught before, in either of those countries, that's what I would be doing and that's what my colleagues would be doing. In Bhutan, none of my colleagues know that. None of them were law professors. The country's never had any law professors before, so they don't know better. They don't know that we're supposed to sit and read dusty books and just summarize them for each other and read old cases and find interesting theories about them. They think that what we're doing, public policy, the advocacy, the synthesis of all sorts of different disciplines, they think that's what law professors do. So my other appeal to you, the first being come to Bhutan to help us build a society, but if you do come, don't tell them that what they're doing is not what law professors in other parts of the world do. I hope that this triggers something about what your comparative advantages are. Our disadvantages are size. There's 14 of us in the entire law school, and cash, or at least developed country, and so if you lack any of the advantages that we have, but you've got cash, or you've got manpower,